This is the story of D.B. Cooper. Of course, his real name isn't D.B. Cooper, nor is it Dan Cooper, which is the name that he gave at 2:45 p.m. on November 24th, 1971, when he bought an airline ticket into history. On that date, a man identifying himself as Dan Cooper paid $20 in cash to purchase a one-way ticket from Seattle, Washington to Portland, Oregon, aboard Northwest Orient Flight 305. Cooper then boarded the flight, a Boeing 727 aircraft. Only later would we realize that Cooper picked that flight specifically because it was a Boeing 727 aircraft. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Cooper then took his seat on the aisle in seat 18C and exchanged numerous pleasantries with the flight crew and other passengers as he waited for the flight to lift off at approximately 3:30 p.m. While waiting, Cooper smoked numerous cigarettes. You were allowed to smoke on commercial airliners back in those days. He also consumed a bourbon and soda, and by all accounts, was extremely calm, very pleasant, and seemed to be fully relaxed. Shortly after 4 p.m., about halfway through the flight, exhibiting his now trademark nonchalance, the man calling himself Cooper caught the attention of flight attendant Tina Mucklow, and as she approached, he slipped her a small scrap of paper. Mucklow didn't look at it right away. She assumed it was some sort of love letter or the like. But when she did finally look at that hand-scrawled note, Tina was shocked to see it actually claimed that the nice man in 18C had a bomb in his briefcase. The note also asked her to sit with him and demanded $200,000, about $1.2 million in today's money, all in $20 bills, as well as 4 parachutes, or he would blow up the plane. Mucklow did as the man asked, and eventually made her way to the cockpit to hand the captain the note. The captain in turn radioed the demands of the passenger to air traffic control, informing them that there was a bomb on board and that the plane was being hijacked. When the plane landed in Seattle, Cooper exchanged 36 of the passengers on board the aircraft for a duffel bag containing the $200,000 he demanded in cash, as well as 4 non-military style, non-steering parachutes. All that remained on the plane for the next leg of the trip would be Cooper and the flight crew. After the plane was refueled at approximately 7:30 p.m., the flight was once again airborne, headed for Mexico City. Exactly what happened next can only be speculated. However, it is largely believed that shortly after 8 p.m., the cockpit flight crew took note that the aft hatch to the Boeing 727 aircraft, one of the only planes in commercial aviation to have such an aft-loading rear set of stairs, suddenly and mysteriously opened in mid-flight, something it's not supposed to do. They also noticed that the stairs were being deployed. The crew reports that shortly after, they felt a shudder, which at that time they assumed was the hijacker making his escape into the damp and frosty northern Pacific night. The photograph that you're looking at now is a daytime overhead view of the area where it's believed that Cooper made his descent into the history books. After Cooper jumped, the crew saw no reason to continue on to Mexico City and landed the plane in Reno, Nevada. Upon landing the plane, and the plane being boarded by law enforcement, they found that Cooper only took 2 of the parachutes with him, and that he also left the cigarette butts and the necktie that he was wearing, the clip-on tie that you're looking at now. Since that fateful day in November of 1971, there has been much speculation about Cooper, about who he was, whether or not he actually jumped, and whether or not he actually survived the jump. When we requested the Freedom of Information Act materials on this case from the FBI, we received over 250,000 documents. Each of those documents were considered in the making of the podcast episode that we call The Legend of D.B. Cooper. We welcome you to come and visit the Veritas 7 True Crime Podcast and listen to the full, unedited, unbroken story of D.B. Cooper. It's a story you don't want to miss.